When a fire alarm goes off in a building, nobody stops to analyze the pitch of the siren. The bell rings, the lights flash, and everyone moves. You look for the smoke.
Right. It's pure instinct. You find the fire, you put it out. Clean sequence.
Clean sequence. But what if there's no fire? What if the wiring's just glitched and that same deafening siren goes off in your living room every single morning for no reason at all?
Oh, that's a different nightmare?
It is. Because if you spend your whole life frantically hunting for a fire that doesn't exist, the alarm itself becomes the emergency.
A very noisy, very exhausting way to live. And that's the trap we're in with our own feelings more often than we realize. You're listening to Paya Talks. Big ideas, both sides, real depth from Paya Academy.
I'm Dr. Farzin.
And I'm Sophia. Today's question: are your hardest emotions just 90-second waves to ride out, or signals trying to tell you something? It comes from Chapter 4 of The Life Skills Gap by clinical psychologist Layla Shaakari, called Emotions Are Not Your Enemy.
I'll argue Shakri is right. Most of our suffering comes from fighting our feelings, and the way out is to let the wave pass.
And I'll argue the opposite, that an emotion isn't just weather. It's often a message, and waiting it out can mean ignoring it. Let's get into it.
Let's start with the biology, because it flips how most of us operate. Shakari leans on neuroscientist Jill Bolte-Taylor's 90-second rule. An emotion is, first of all, a physical event, a cascade of chemistry. Something triggers it. Your brain's alarm fires. Chemicals flood your bloodstream. They peak and they flush out, all in about 90 seconds.
Assuming you don't interfere with it, which, let's be honest, we almost always do.
Constantly, and Shakari shows it through Sarah, 41, battling morning anxiety for 7 years. She wakes, feels a small wave of unease in her chest, and her slow, analytical brain immediately kicks in. What's wrong? Is it that email I'm avoiding? Is my daughter okay at school?
And the analyzing keeps it alive.
Here's the cruel part. Your brain can't tell the difference between a real tiger in the room and a vivid thought of a tiger. So every time Sarah replays that stressful email, her brain thinks a brand new threat just appeared and pumps out a fresh dose of stress chemistry. She takes 90 seconds of morning chemistry and turns it into hours, into years. The exhaustion of trying to fix the feeling is what makes it unbearable.
So Shakari's answer is,
stop trying to solve a wave. Let the physical event run its course.
and here's where I get off. I'll grant the 90-second chemistry completely. That's real. What I challenge is the claim that the wave isn't a message. Look at Sarah. Shakari herself says the anxiety started alongside very real stressors: a new baby, new responsibilities at work, a move to a new neighborhood. Huge upheavals.
7 years ago, though.
Sure, but we're told to look at her morning anxiety and file it as just biology, a meaningless cortisol spike tied to her body clock. I don't buy that. If you train people to compartmentalize their feelings like that, you're edging toward experiential avoidance, running from your own inner experience because it's uncomfortable. Emotions are adaptive signals. Strip away their context and you ignore what they're for.
I see why you'd say that. But think about the timeline. The baby, the job, the move, those triggers are in the past. What Sarah feels now every morning isn't a present tense emergency. It's an old, well-worn groove. Her fight or flight system has simply built a habit. It reads her ordinary morning baseline as something is wrong. The scary thoughts get layered on in milliseconds, so it feels seamless, but it isn't. It's the stock fire alarm.
Except you can't cut the mind off from its environment that cleanly. If the default rule is don't try to figure it out, it's just a broken alarm, you teach people to ignore real fires. Sha'akeri says an emotion isn't a thought, an opinion, a moral statement about the world. But sometimes anger is exactly that. If someone's crossing your boundaries, if your workplace is toxic, your anger is information. Tell yourself, oh, that's just my nervous system doing its thing, and you're using biology to gaslight your own intuition.
You're right that you shouldn't ignore a toxic workplace, but you also can't navigate one with a siren screaming in your ears. You have to change your relationship to the alarm itself. And that's the heart of the therapy Shakari lanes on, called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy.
This is the separate the noticer from the feeling idea.
Exactly. Most of us live in fusion. We say, I am anxious. The feeling and the self become one thing. It fills the whole screen. Diffusion is a tiny pivot. I am noticing the feeling of anxiety. Shakari uses the classic image. You're not the weather, you're the sky the weather happens in. You become the context, not the content.
Okay, I have to jump in. I've heard the sky and weather line in 100 meditation apps. And practically, when I'm furious about something, I do not feel like the sky. I feel like I'm being struck by lightning. How does this work in the half second a trigger hits? Does Shakari really expect someone mid-panic attack to suddenly become the serene, detached sky?
No, and that's the misread. Diffusion isn't about feeling calm. It's about breaking the loop. When you're furious, the alarm's blaring. If you fuse, I'm angry, I need to scream back. You act on impulse and keep the adrenaline flowing. But if you diffuse, I'm noticing a surge of heat in my chest and a strong urge to yell. You're mechanically switching on the thinking part of your brain. The moment you name the physical sensation, you start taking the wheel back from the alarm.
I get the clinical use, especially for acute panic. But philosophically, I worry about carving the self in two. Sha'akeri even says to treat your inner critic like an old roommate you stopped questioning. Doesn't separating yourself that sharply risk a fractured sense of self? If my anxiety is just a roommate, or just a cloud, then I don't have to take responsibility for it, or listen to it. Real self-acceptance means integrating our fears, understanding why they're trying to protect us. Define yourself only as the cool, detached observer, and you strip the humanity out of being human.
Observing yourself isn't dissociation, though. Dissociation is involuntarily checking out. Diffusion is deliberately, consciously present. You're choosing to sit in the room with a hard feeling without letting it drive the car. And we know it works. ACT has over 1,000 controlled trials behind it. The total enmeshment you're defending, staying tangled up in the emotion so you don't betray it, is exactly what kept Sarah suffering for 7 years.
I'm not defending enmeshment. I'm defending meaning. I just flinch at the absolute language. You are not your feelings makes the feelings sound like an invading enemy, even though Shakari insists they're not.
And that's where she brings in Kristin Neff's research on self-compassion. For decades, we've assumed, especially driven, successful people, that a harsh inner critic is what keeps us sharp. That if we're not cruel to ourselves when we fail, we'll get lazy. Neff found the opposite. Treating yourself with the kindness you'd give a friend actually makes you more resilient and more accountable.
Lovely idea. And Neff's work is hugely popular. But let's interrogate it. Plenty of top performers credit their unforgiving inner critic for their success. If you're listening and thinking, but my anxiety and self-criticism are what keep me sharp, they pay my mortgage, then this advice sounds like a recipe for losing your edge. Swap the demanding coach for a gentle friend going, "It's okay you missed the deadline. Don't I just slide into mediocrity?"
That's the most common fear, and it gets the biology backwards. When you beat yourself up, you fire your threat system. Your body floods with the same stress chemicals as if you were physically attacked. Over time, fear-based motivation destroys your edge. burnout, playing it safe, performance anxiety, because the price of failure is a psychological beating.
Okay, but mechanically, how does being nice to myself keep me accountable to a missed deadline?
Because self-compassion switches on a different system, the care system, which calms the body down. It's not letting yourself off the hook. Picture two coaches. One screams in your face and calls you a failure. The other says, you really blew that play, but I know you're better than that. Get back out there and run it again. Which player takes the next risk? Which one bounces back faster? The one who isn't terrified of their own mind. Compassion is what gives you the safety to look honestly at your mistakes without falling apart.
I can accept that. Trading the screaming coach for a firm, supportive one is a better long game. Where I split from Shaakari is the tool she builds out of all this. The 3A process: acknowledge, allow, act.
Let's walk it, because this is where the theory hits the pavement. Step 1. Acknowledge. You name the physical feeling. I'm noticing tightness in my chest. That switches on the thinking brain. Step 2. Allow. You ride the 90-second wave without solving or analyzing it. You let it peak and fall. Step 3. Act. Once the wave loosens its grip, you choose your next move from your long-term values, not from what the feeling was screaming at you in the moment.
And here's my problem: the seam between step 2 and step 3. In step 2, you're told to treat the emotion as a meaningless wave. Don't ask why it came, don't treat it as a message, it's just a glitch. Then in step 3, you suddenly make deep, values-based choices. So if the emotion carries no message and you've cut yourself off from its context, what exactly is informing those values?
The values come from your bigger identity, the sky, not the weather. They're your deep beliefs about who you want to be. They exist whether or not there's a 90-second chemical surge happening.
But values don't float in a vacuum. They're tied to emotional truths. Why do I value my family? Because I feel love. Why do I value justice? Because injustice makes me angry. Concrete example: I get a condescending email from my boss. Anger flares. If I spend step 2 telling myself that anger means nothing, how do I then use that same emotional landscape in step 3 to figure out the right thing to do? You've just spent 2 minutes invalidating the compass you now need.
I think you're blending two different things, an acute reaction and a core value. The acute anger demands you fire back a scorching reply this second to defend your ego. Act on that and you might get fired. Step 2 never says your desire for respect is a glitch. It says this specific spike, the heat in your face, the urge to burn the bridge, is the glitch. Let that spike burn off for 90 seconds and you get your real values back. Career stability, communicating with dignity. The pause clears the static so the true signal comes through.
Clean interpretation. But Shakari sells the 3A process as a universal tool for everyday life, and sometimes the acute reaction is the right answer. Someone makes a genuinely inappropriate comment to me, and the anger that flares isn't static, it's the signal. If I sit there going, I notice heat in my face, I'll let this weather pass for 90 seconds. I'm actively suppressing my instinct to set a boundary in the moment. Sometimes what the emotion demands is exactly the right move.
And Shakari says so directly. She writes that the choice may turn out to be the very thing the emotion was demanding. Sometimes the demand is correct, but now it's your conscious choice from your values rather than the automatic firing of an old pattern. The 90-second pause doesn't stop you setting the boundary. It just means you set it with clarity instead of snapping and torching your career. The pause is where the power is.
I hear that. I just stay wary of over-medicalizing our inner lives. Reduce everything to chemical cascades and body clocks, and you risk losing the intuition, the spontaneity, the messy reality of being a person. I completely agree that fighting our feelings is destructive, but real integration means seeing emotions as meaningful parts of who we are, not just whether to wait out.
So, to land it, the war against our own minds is exhausting. We agree on that completely. And self-compassion is vital. Whether you picture a hard feeling as weather passing through the sky or as a light flashing on your dashboard, there's real power in choosing how you relate to it.
Both are true depending on the moment. Some feelings are waves to ride. Some are signals to heed. The skill is knowing which is which.
So here's the one to carry. The next time the alarm starts ringing in your mind, remember you have a choice. You can go tearing through the house hunting for a fire that may not be there.
Or you can pause, step back, and simply notice the sound.
If you want to sit with this properly, it's chapter 4 of The Life Skills Gap by Leila Shakeri, with more on making peace with your emotions over at Paya Academy.
That's it for this episode of Paya Talks. Next time, why you can feel completely alone at a table full of people who love you.
Until then, keep safe.